82, the number 82, is displayed for your viewing pleasure. So you zoom out and you see that here you can see a small briefcase. Looks like a good old briefcase. So we're in this video going to be opening this briefcase up to show the inside. Maybe the inside's a bunch of mechanical pencils, you know what I mean? That's what we're all about here, am I right? Okay, so let's open up this briefcase, huh? Right here, though, very slightly it says made in Holland. So we'll open up this case. Think of Link opening up a treasure chest on Zelda. Oh, ton 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 ton. We have ourselves a very interesting tape recording machine inside. And look at all that nice red felt. Oh yeah, I love red felt. So what do we have inside this here briefcase? Well, we have various different items inside. We have a little power pack here. It says Norelco. Now, for those of y'all who don't know, Norelco is the same as Philips. Back in the day, Philips devices sold in the U.S. tended to be branded as Norelco. I believe the reason why is because the Philco company thought it was thought that the Philco company sounded too similar to Philips, and Philco didn't like that, so they made Philips change their name for American devices, so they used Norelco for the devices in the U.S. It's a little power pack here. This thing has been giving me a little bit of trouble with maintaining voltage under load. I think it might just be a connection inside. I'm running the machine off batteries right now, but you can see the inside of this power pack. It's quite something because it actually, you know, most of these power packs just have a transformer, a rectifier, and a filter cap. But on this one, you got a little bit more than that. You also have a TO3 transistor inside there. So it looks like it actually has some degree of voltage regulation circuitry built inside, which is impressive. It shows a step up in standard of quality in the design from what you normally find. And the other end is a DIN connector. So what else do we have in our briefcase here? We got 3 metal boxes over here. So these metal boxes, let's show one up close. This metal box, you can see North American Philips Company, Norelco, made in Holland, EL3779/00A. These are really nifty little boxes here, but what do they contain? Oh, look at that. That's interesting. So, here we have a regular cassette tape. Let's compare it to a cassette tape. You can see it's a cartridge. It's definitely a cartridge, but it only has one spool. But it's empty. There's no tape inside, and there's only one spool. Let's get another one of these boxes and open it up. Oh, look at that. This one has tape. Isn't that something? We have one cartridge that has tape in it. Another cartridge devoid of tape. But they're cartridges, like the cassette is a cartridge. Pay attention to the width of the tape in the cassette. Pull the tape out of this cartridge, you'll see it's got a little bit of leader tape, and then it has, as well as the width of the cassette, 1/8 inch tape, just like a cassette has. That's interesting. It's got this little deal on it. Interesting little deal at the end of the tape there. Now we look at the device, the main feature. The tape recorder itself inside the briefcase. Under the tape recorder you see the rest of the nice briefcase for the recorder. So, it's a very interesting looking machine. Has a very small hole for seeing just a little bit of the cartridge inside, right where it's spinning on the supply spool. Let's open the case up. And you'll see inside the recorder, very interesting looking tape recorder. Looks a lot like a reel-to-reel. And a microphone. To remove the recorder from the leather case, you first have to unscrew this deal on the side. Okay, so here's the recorder out of the case. Now, I'm starting out with the reels taken off so I can show loading. So, in rewind, it's pretty fast spinning of that reel, and fast forward spinning of the take-up. You'll notice the controls, you basically have record, rewind, play, and fast forward, and then a stop. You have over here a time indicator, a volume control, and a light that lights up to show that your batteries are low. An incandescent light, of course. Let's angle the machine so you can see this better. Here you have an intermittent mechanical pause, or momentary mechanical pause. And here is a very special lever which goes like this. So let's load a tape onto this recorder. We start out with the supply on the left side and the take-up on the right. The special lever is to thread the tape. Once it's threaded, the machine can be started. This machine had some problems with it when I got it. Of course, I had to replace the belts because, as anyone would guess on an old Philips recorder, they have deteriorated. So, not all of them, but there's definitely deteriorated belts. So, I had to replace the deteriorated belts, and then finally, I also had to replace a leaky capacitor. I actually replaced 2 capacitors. One more of a troubleshooting idea that it might be leaky. The other one was definitely leaky. But also the distorted sound in the recording, or maybe it was more noticeable when you play it through an external amplifier or speaker, is bass distortion. And that was because the AC-128 germanium PNP push-pull output transistors, at least one of the transistors was, something was wrong with that transistor, and it was causing distortion in the waveform. When I replaced the output transistors, the distortion went away and it passed a clean waveform. So anyway, because I was using the oscilloscope and so forth, that recording you heard was before I replaced the transistors. Now the machine does still tend to have a fuzzy tone. I'm not sure there's too much I can do about that. This machine was given to me by a YouTuber named Jeff Bambrough, with the idea that I would transfer some old tapes to digital for him. So I digitized some old recordings, and I'm very pleased with the recorder.
C128 power output transistors with some vintage Texas Instrument transistors, because we were having the distortion problem caused by the power output transistors. Feel it in your system. In your system. The downside on this machine is its tendency to have fuzzy sound. Yawning is fun. Today's date is the 16th of August, 2019 AD. I'm using the original.
A good place to put this lapel mic to get a nice sample of the sound out of the microphone / speaker of this recorder is right in the little hole in the back.
It is 15:31, that is the time. 15:31 is the time. The Johnson upgraded power supply is supplying this recorder with 9.1 volts according to its display. Probably some connection issue. The little power supply, external power supply plug-in for this recorder does not want to power this machine. This is a computer vocal thread speaking. You're listening to the voice of a machine. The number you have reached, 464-1078, has been changed. The power supply is now working and powering the recorder. That is the small plug-in wall transformer with transistor circuitry inside, seemingly to actually regulate the voltage to my absolute amazement. How does this machine pick up at arm's length distance? Digging.
Hello, this is the sickly sister Antoinette Racy. I am here to proclaim that Jesus is Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Jesus is Lord.
Amen.
Yes. Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus. The Son of Man, Son of Righteousness, King of the earth, for sinners slain.
Amen.
Amen.
Came with this recorder in the past was a man who in the
Hydrocortisone cream.
I was your enemy. Lord, you became a curse for me. Oh, what a mystery. My God, you died for me. You died for me, your enemy. I never thought that you would be so full of love and tender mercy. How could you love a person like me? You love me, dear Jesus, your enemy. What made you die for me? I was.
As you can hear, putting the microphone right up against that really captures the sound out of the small mic very well. If I hold the microphone more at a distance, you'll hear more how it might sound to you hearing it in person. And it's not all that loud. Bull. Like many dictation machines, the playback comes out through the microphone being used as a speaker. Also on this machine, Notice that this has a remote start-stop. I have another video I made on the same model recorder in 2009, 10 years ago. One branded Philips, but the same model number. I'm going to show an interesting feature. I got a little light bulb out of here. It turns out the light bulb on here is actually open circuit. The filament looks intact, but it's not working. Here's the inside of the microphone module, and here is the actual microphone. Isn't that neat? Of course, it's a microphone slash speaker. Being unable to recover the original light bulb, I have another a replacement light bulb put inside. When nearing the end of the tape, it blinks to warn you. That is between the 19 and 19.5 minute mark. After the 19.5 minute mark, the last 30 seconds go by without blinking the light. That's normal for this recorder. This recorder has a very interesting feature on it. This is another one of my machines with the Philips branding. Ooh, this machine here, the counter on it, this is not just an ordinary tape counter. This is a minute indicator. Since the tapes record for 20 minutes per side, this indicator goes between 0 and 20. Whenever the tape's at the beginning, you can freely move this knob back and forth to set it at 0. As your counter is counting, once you get to the 19-minute point, a light on the microphone begins to blink to warn you that you have 1 minute left of recording time. After the light stops blinking, you have 30 more seconds left before the tape reaches the end. Now we have 30 more seconds before we get to the 20. As the tape nears the end. Dropouts abound. Thanks to the old tape. And that's it. That's at the end of the tape. Notice it's right at the 20. So now let's say you have a tape and you want to load it in this way and access that point again. The threading system doesn't only thread from the supply to the take-up, it can also thread the other way. Except this particular, there it goes. It has a piece of chipped plastic on the cartridge, so it doesn't always catch nicely. Now notice, since the counter is a mechanically operated system, or the flashing light is a mechanically operated system, when you're rewinding or fast forwarding through the section between the 19 and 19.5 minute mark, it will blink fast. Quite something, huh? I just discovered this feature today, and my mind was blown. I've had the two Philips branded recorders for 10 years. I've used them every once in a while, not too often, except I did use one extensively in the summer of 2013 on a trip to New Mexico. But I had never discovered the flashing light feature. I never really paid much attention to the counter and just thought it didn't have that much use back then. I mean, I just thought it was a regular tape counter, but I finally noticed more that it's actually minutes. And if you look here, because the counter is only driven by the supply reel, so that means the velocity, the angular velocity will vary as the angular velocity will increase as the tape reaches the end. Because of that, the speed of the turning of the counter changes throughout the length of the tape. They've accounted for that because if you look at the counter here, you'll see on the early minutes, all the little lines, all the little lines are close together. But as you get closer and closer to 20, the lines get farther and farther apart. That way, you'll be able to have an accurate timing of where you're at on the tape. The engineers really thought this machine through, and I think that's really cool. Even on the Philips transcription model of this, you'll notice on its counter, the spacing gets farther and farther apart the closer you get to 20 to account for the change in speed. There's a neat accessory that I'd like to show. It is an accessory that came with the machine. It's an accessory that I made years ago. A few years ago. Around 2013. I made this adapter. And with this adapter, you can play back recordings to this small speaker. You can also record using this speaker as a microphone, and you can also plug in an external microphone or use this as an audio output. It's the same jack for both since this uses the speaker as a mic. Now, the interesting thing about this recorder is the output is not for a low impedance speaker like 8 ohms. The impedance of the output, I believe, is 120 ohms. At least the DC resistance is around 120 ohms of the secondary of the transformer that drives the speaker. So to impedance match this, I got one of those small transformers like you find at a walkie-talkie, and that works a lot better with this than just hooking the speaker up directly, since this speaker is your typical 8 ohms or whatever. Then I have a little switch in here to switch between the speaker or the jack. And of course the jack output is hooked up directly to the recorder. The transformer is used only for the speaker. But the beautiful thing is finding a pretty good transformer for matching the impedance combined with a very efficient external speaker. Now this speaker is an old Altec-Landsing 400B speaker which came out in 1949. It was made to be extremely efficient. With that setup, it's surprising how loud this recorder will drive it. Compare the volume, how loud this is versus
original microphone slash speaker. This is to evaluate how it sounds with the spoken word through this microphone, which will then be directly contrasted to a higher quality Sony F96 microphone. The Sony F96 microphone to hear any difference.
We're going to hear that contrasting recording with microphones with a direct hookup.
Using the Philips Norelco original microphone slash speaker, this is to evaluate how it sounds with the spoken word through this microphone, which will then be directly contrasted to a higher quality Sony F96 microphone. Right now, this is the sound of the original microphone for this recorder. Now, in contrast, we are using the Sony F96 microphone to hear any difference in the sound quality of the Philips Norelco EL3583 cartridge to cartridge recorder, or STS format, the self-threading system, STS. So we're also going to compare that to the small speaker of the makeshift adapter that I made for this recorder. So now I'm speaking to the small speaker that is used in the makeshift adapter for this recorder to see how it fares as a microphone, so we can basically have an auditory experience of all three different microphones, so you can hear the differences in quality of the three. You'll also be hearing a nice recording of my friend Maurice, which was recorded in a car, except because of the recorder's preset level and its frequency response being a bit narrow, you don't have much of the low frequency sound of being in the car, which lends for a very good clarity of sound and intelligibility and very low background noise.
Tape recorders, well, you know, it's I like them actually, because I like to record my voice and just see how articulate I can be, you know, because sometimes I wanna be able to communicate, you know, and just, I mean, these cassette recorders, they just help me to evaluate how effective I am, you know, to transfer the message, you know, and so it's good for me.
This has been a Cassette Master production.